Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us on this edition of News 2. I'm Sandra Gumansing. Topping our newscast, Lieutenant Governor Osbert Potter made a significant announcement Wednesday that affects property owners and bidders who participated in property auctions a couple of years ago. It could mean going back to square one for the properties involved and tighter regulations for future property auctions. News 2's April Knight has that story.
Remember the rigged property auctions in 2012 and 2013? Well, most of the original owners are getting their properties back, and the bidders are getting government checks. That announcement was made by Lieutenant Governor Osbert Potter Wednesday. His office oversees the VI Real Property Tax Division. During the controversial real property auctions, the VI Inspector General found rigged auctions and botched paperwork. An illegal policy change allowed a manipulated bidding scheme orchestrated by a handful of bidders. They froze the bidding process by bidding high amounts and then failed to pay the deposit. In the end, the property went to an accomplice at a very low price.
As a result of this, the Virgin Islands lost thousands of dollars because of mismanagement of the auction process and the public trust, which is even a greater concern.
According to Lieutenant Governor Potter, most of those auctions are now null and void, and most of the original owners are getting their properties back. Some 72 checks worth a total of $2.3 million will be sent back to the winning bidders. According to Potter, real property auctions will still be held in the future, but with stricter regulations.
We internally are beginning to tighten up on the whole process and procedure that we will take for any auctions going into the future, where we will tighten the controls and tighten the procedures and share those procedures with the public in a timely basis.
Reporting for News 2, I'm April Knight.
In other news, the Virgin Islands Waste Management Authority officials say that within the past 2 weeks, bin sites were set on fire and reported as arson by the Virgin Islands Fire Services. The first event on October 1st, they say, occurred at the Concordia bin site in an area with illegally disposed tires. The second event on October 7th occurred at the Montbijou bin site in an area with illegally disposed white goods and green waste. The VI Fire Services, in conjunction with VI Waste Management Authority contractors, extinguished the fires. Fires at bin sites can be dangerous for residents living in close proximity to the impacted area. They say call 911 to report any suspicious behavior, persons, or activities. And here's an update. St. Croix police continue to investigate vandalism at a local school over the weekend. As we reported on Tuesday, a 6th grade class at the Lou Muckle Elementary School was broken into and vandalized. Officials discovered the damage Monday morning that included overturned desks and computers. Profanity sprawled across the boards and torn photos. There are surveillance cameras at the school which will aid in bringing the perpetrators to justice, but officials with the VI Police Department say that a police report hasn't been filed. Calls to the Department of Education for clarification or an update were not returned by news time. Senator Gene Ford, meanwhile, chairman of the Senate Committee on Education and Workforce Development, expressed his anger and dismay upon learning of that vandalization of the classroom. Ford reached out and expressed his support for Lou Muckle School's teacher, Kim Flood, which is a 6th grade teacher, as well as the students. He said that our schools are faced with enough challenges without having to grapple with the destructive actions of a few lawbreakers. He said our schools and classrooms should be safe havens, and when hooligans violate those spaces, they discourage and dishearten our students and teachers, and they strike a blow at our entire community. He's calling on law enforcement officials to give this matter their utmost attention. Count on 2 to keep you updated. A Hispanic man was found dead Wednesday morning just before 8 on St. Thomas. Police say an officer who was walking in the area of John Brewers Bay was flagged down by a motorist who noticed the man lying in the area of the former dump site on Black Point Hill. A passing officer was flagged down, and all 3 traveled to the site where they discovered the victim, who looked to be in his late 20s to mid-30s. The victim had been shot multiple times. Anyone with information is urged to call police. Meanwhile, St. Croix police are asking for the community's help to identify the suspect in this photo. Take a look at your screen. A few weeks ago, the community was in an uproar over a Facebook video of animal cruelty on St. Croix. The video showed someone setting a chicken on fire and then laughed as it ran to the road and died. From the 40-second video, police were able to extract this still picture of the suspect. If you recognize him, police say contact police or Crime Stoppers. As part of Domestic Violence Awareness Month, Mrs. USVI Globe has been making the rounds across the territory to both educate people and help promote activities surrounding domestic violence. Tracy Stafford, a survivor of domestic violence and assault, spoke at DVSAC and UVI St. Croix Tuesday, and she's heading to St. Thomas Thursday to share her story. NEWS2's Erica Parsons has more.
Mrs. USVI Globe has made it her mission to help victims and survivors of domestic violence.
My message has always been that your circumstances do not define you. They mean absolutely nothing. They are actually just experiences that you've gone through, and hopefully you learn from them and not get caught up in the story of them.
The Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Council, or DVSAC, partnered with Tracy Stafford to promote education prevention initiatives. DVSAC is also working with the University of the Virgin Islands.
We started with the University of the Virgin Islands. We have officially partnered with them to provide their sexual violence prevention education program.
This week, Stafford is making the rounds, hitting media outlets and talking to students and local organizations dedicated to promoting healthier relationships.
Survivor is not the end of the story. And so many people get to Survivor, they label themselves Survivor, and that is it. So to me, Survivor just means that you lived through it, you're out of it. But it's about moving on and healing and then sort of regaining who you were meant to be.
One of Stafford's messages is just getting people to understand the forms that domestic violence can take.
It's not just physical violence. It's absolutely physical violence, but it's also financial. That someone can hold over your head, that you will no longer have this money, my support, those types of things. It can also be, it can be emotional. I'll withdraw my love from you.
She says the road to survival is not an easy one. In fact, Stafford says it's often the toughest part of the journey, but on the other side, there's freedom.
And there are days that I'll go and I'll speak and I'll hit something new that I hadn't talked about before, hadn't remembered before. And I will cry, and it hurts, and I will go through sort of the healing process each time. So it is not an easy thing, but it's worth it.
Erica Parsons, News 2.
As part of DVSAC's Empowerment Week, Stafford will be the honorary speaker at the St. Thomas National Guard headquarters from 9 to 1 Thursday. There will also be a meet and greet at UVI. Well, Family Resource Center is also recognizing Domestic Violence Awareness Month with some events, including the clothesline display at Tutu Park Mall on Saturday, October 10th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Clotheslines will display T-shirts designed by students who wanted to express themselves about how violence and sexual assault have affected their lives. Also, there's the Walk a Mile in Her Shoes men's walk run. That's coming up on Sunday, October 11th at 4 p.m. Men and boys of the VI will join together to run 2 miles wearing or carrying women's shoes. They're meeting at the Adelita Cancran Junior High School field and proceeding through sub-base and back. Participants will receive a T-shirt and winners will receive trophies. Turn our attention overseas. Doctors Without Borders is accusing the United States of committing a war crime. The charge comes after Saturday's deadly airstrike that took out one of its hospitals in Afghanistan. The White House maintains it was a tragic mistake as the president calls to offer an apology. Diane Gallagher has more.
Even war has rules.
And the question now is, did the United States break those rules with airstrikes on a Doctors Without Borders hospital in Afghanistan Saturday?
In Kunduz, our patients burned in their beds. Our doctors, nurses, and other staff were killed as they worked.
12 staff members and 10 patients died. Dozens were injured. On Wednesday, Doctors Without Borders called for an unprecedented independent investigation by the International Humanitarian Fact-Finding Commission, which has been around for a quarter century but never actually used.
Particularly given the inconsistencies in the U.S. and Afghan accounts of what happened over recent days. We cannot rely only on internal military investigations by the U.S., NATO, and Afghan forces.
The White House says President Obama called Doctors Without Borders on Wednesday to apologize and express his condolences, and that he is confident in the current Department of Defense investigation, but didn't say whether he supports the independent one.
The United States, when we make a mistake, we're honest about it, we own up to it, we apologize where necessary, as the President did in this case, and we implement the kinds of changes that make it less likely that those kinds of mistakes will occur in the future.
Doctors Without Borders says it notified coalition and Afghan forces of its coordinates just days before the bombings happened. In Washington, I'm Diane Gallagher reporting.
Meanwhile, keeping our eye on the economy, here's a look at our stock market watch. The Dow, NASDAQ, S&P all up. The Dow 122, NASDAQ 42, S&P 515. Coming up on News 2, some highlights from last night's bout between Julius the Chef Jackson and Jose Uzcategui, and plus, oh, McHappy Day for one of our local nonprofits. Details coming up. Welcome back. Condolences continue to pour in as funeral services for David Canton have been announced. Viewing is at 5 to 7 p.m. Thursday at the Richard Colwood Command at Alexander Farrelly Criminal Justice Center. Then tributes from 8 to 8:45 a.m. Friday at St. Peter and Paul Cathedral. Service is set for 9 a.m. Interment will be at the Western Cemetery, number 2. The Senate recognized Canton's achievements last week. Governor Mapps said Canton set the standard for criminal investigative technique and supervision. He was known as a great detective and may have been the pioneer of community policing in the territory. According to the governor, he is survived by his wife, Betty Poxon Canton, son, David Canton, and daughter, Gloria Knight Taylor. The Virgin Islands Puerto Rico celebration continues Thursday with an open concert at Canagata Ballpark beginning at 6 p.m. It's the sacred night for Hispanic Heritage Month.
This is where we're going to have a praying, praises to the Lord, because, you know, our community going through crisis. Our young people are killing themselves, shooting, young, innocent people are getting shot, and families are breaking down. We decided to have an open concert, and everything, it's going to be at David C. Canagata Ballpark. So Thursday night, we're going to have the sacred night, and it's open to all the churches. I mean, Pastor Samuel Carrion and Mrs. Wilma Cruz, they have been doing a great job. They have involved all the churches that wants to participate, young people participation. They bring in Josie Esteban from Puerto Rico, which is very famous.
Well, it was a happy one for our local nonprofits. The My Brothers Workshop was at the center of this year's launch of McHappy Day, which featured a very familiar, colorful face. With the community's help, My Brothers Workshop could stand to raise thousands for the at-risk youth in its care. News 2's April Knight has more.
Ronald McDonald was in the house at My Brother's Workshop Wednesday. They're launching McDonald's McHappy Day, which is expected to raise thousands of dollars for this local nonprofit servicing VI youth.
We're launching the McHappy Day campaign, and it starts today, October 7th.
My Brother's Workshop has helped hundreds of at-risk and high-risk Virgin Islands youth, keeping them off the streets through vocational training and counseling programs and giving them another shot at life.
Our kids are from all over the island. Some have different obstacles that they're facing. Some will have, they'll be court ordered to come to us. Some have learning disabilities. Some just need an extra helping hand to get them to the next part of their life.
This bakery on St. Thomas is their latest project. Kashim Saunders, one of their young apprentices, will be joining the Marines in January. This is not the first time McDonald's has chosen My Brother's Workshop as its McHappy Day beneficiary.
We've been with My Brother's Workshop since 2013, and we have donated in total $9,564.
So this is how it works. Between now and November 13th, you can purchase a hand at McDonald's for $1. And on the big day, that's November 13th, you can buy a Big Mac. All of these proceeds go to My Brother's Workshop. And for My Brother's Workshop, it's a much-needed relief.
So the first year, we raised close to $4,000. Last year it was close to $6,000, which helped open the doors of the cafe. And so this year what we do with the money is it goes straight into the program to help the kids in their training.
Reporting for News 2, I'm April Knight.
About 30 students were in attendance, getting some homework assistance last Thursday and enjoying the new computer room in Bovoni, one of VINGN's public community computer labs, all thanks to Rotary Club of St. Thomas East. The group of 16 to 17 members adopted the lab, which was opened about a month ago but needed some volunteers. Rotary members and volunteers are now donating some time to lend a hand every Wednesdays and Fridays, the days the lab is open for now. If you would like to volunteer, call Lynn Delaney at 817-773-7223 or Corrine Van Rensselaer at 340-626-1199. Be sure to stick around. Your News 2 AccuWeather forecast is coming up next.